I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation, the disappearance of 9-year-old Melodee Buzzard, a girl who went on a road trip with her mom but never came home. Here's the story. 9-year-old Melodee Buzzard vanished without a trace after leaving California with her mother, Ashlee. What began as a quiet road trip from Santa Barbara County turned into a mystery that's gripped the nation. Investigators say Ashlee rented a car and drove halfway across the country to Nebraska. But somewhere along the way, Melodee disappeared. Days later, Ashlee was found alone, and now she's refusing to cooperate. Detectives are retracing every mile of that haunting drive, collecting surveillance footage, and questioning witnesses who saw the pair together before Melodee was gone. Search teams are scouring highways, fields, and rest stops for any sign of the missing girl. What happened on that cross-country journey, and why won't her own mother help find her child? She's not cooperating. She's not telling anyone what happened or where her 9-year-old daughter is. She was a single parent. Melodee's dad died when she was 6 months old. So it's just been mom. And mom's saying nothing. And we're like, when are they going to turn the pressure up on Ashlee Buzzard? Well, big news happening, which is the arrest of Melodee Buzzard. Let's check in with Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. What can you tell us about this arrest of Ashlee Buzzard?
Well, Vinnie, she was arrested by Santa Barbara County deputies with the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office back home where she lives in California. But Vinnie, here's the kicker. She was arrested on charges that are not related to the ongoing search for her 9-year-old daughter, Melodee, not in any relation at all, according to deputy officials. Now, they put out a press release, the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office. They say detectives learned of a recent incident where Ashlee prevented an unknown victim, or a victim that hasn't been named, from leaving a location against their will, which they say constitutes false imprisonment. Now, again, this is, according to them, not connected to the ongoing search for Melodee. And investigators say they are currently unable to give any further details because it would impede on their investigation. She's again charged with felony false imprisonment. Now, she was booked at the Northern Branch Jail in Santa Barbara County. Her bail is set at $100,000. Vinnie, I don't know what her finances are like, but that's a strong amount there. And her booking photo will not be distributed. Now, of course, you know, we still don't know exact details about this false imprisonment, who this victim was, when it happened, where it happened. But she is behind bars here, Vinnie, and we'll be sure to update our viewers, of course, when we get that information about these false imprisonment charges. But just very interesting that they're not related in any way to this ongoing investigation into Melodee's disappearance.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, everyone watching tonight, seeing that image, that's something that everyone's been wondering. When is it going to happen? When are they going to do something? And they did do something. They put her in cuffs. She's in custody. She is locked up behind bars tonight. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation. And I think it's an important one. How does this arrest impact the search for Melodee? Right? False imprisonment. I have no idea. We have no idea the circumstances surrounding that. But it's unrelated. But it does put some level of pressure, turns up the intensity here. But how much of an impact will it have on this search? Here to help answer that question, trial attorney Darren Kavinoki. Been a while, my man. Great to see you.
It's been a minute. Great to see you too, Vinnie.
Awesome. And he still looks the same. And private investigator Lauren Vellucci. All right. Great to have you both here. Darren, I'll start with you. Let's talk about it. 9-year-old daughter, single mom. She's missing. She just has, you know, she's doing what every criminal defense attorney would tell her to do, say nothing. But now she's under arrest for something else. What does that do now for the search for Melodee?
Well, it does a couple things straight away. Like, obviously, you get to constrain your chief suspect in this case. So you've got some control over her movements, at least for a period of time. You know, the way the bail scheme works in California with $100,000 bail, generally it only requires somebody to come forward with 10% of that, so 10 grand, plus some security, right, to be able to secure her release. You know, it's interesting here when I was looking at the press release from the sheriff, not to parse words too carefully here, but they say that this doesn't have a direct correlation. It's not directly related to Melodee's disappearance, but it doesn't identify who the victim is, obviously, and certainly could be Melodee. You know, the other thing that it does is it gets some leverage over her, some opportunity for questioning, because as you so aptly point out, there's so much about this case, the wigs, the changing of the license plates, the behavior that would not be consistent with your typical grieving, concerned mother. You know, all of those things really point in one direction and one direction only.
All right, Lauren, do you feel like this woman, like, we've learned something about her, right? There's something wrong with her. We understand that. Do you think she will respond to the pressure? Do you think she'll respond to this loss of freedom to somehow, some way, perhaps cooperate in the search for her 9-year-old? We're having a volume issue. Do you have a little button there?
Gotcha. Sorry about that. I would personally be shocked if she did respond. That would be the best case scenario. Obviously, they would be able to get more information out of her. But given how she has been, you know, before all of this, I would be shocked. But I'm with Darren. I believe 100% that these are related to Melodee's case. They're parsing words there, and it is telling.
Darren, let me ask you. She's someone who has a mental health history. The fact that she's in custody now, do they have some leverage perhaps to get her help for her mental issues that may bring her to a place where she may then be more willing to cooperate?
Yeah, so when people are awaiting trial, they're generally held in a county jail facility, and they do have mental health treatment that's available there, primarily when you're talking about the medical side. So she should be evaluated by doctors to see whether that's an issue for her. But, you know, that gets to be a really dicey situation. You know, frankly, I think all this buys them is a little bit of time. Even if she's convicted for this, and I don't know what her criminal record is, but, you know, the maximum punishment is 3 years in prison.
Right. Darren, let me ask you this, Darren.
With no record.
Ethically, if she's getting help, and let's say she's getting counseling, and she reveals something to the psych that works for the jail, can that psych reveal that information if it's relative to where Melodee is?
Oh my goodness! Well, now you're asking me to do some research on the fly, Vinny. You know, you've got so
Darren,
many
you've been
issues
away
to
so
unpack
long.
there.
I'm going to put you to work tonight. Like,
I guess so.
does that put the psych on the hot seat? Does that put the psych on the hot seat?
Well, I mean, look, generally in a situation where somebody is pursuing treatment, they've got a privilege, and that's important for all sorts of reasons. You know, when people, you've got a privilege with your doctor, you've got a privilege with your priest, you've got a privilege with your therapist in the context of therapy. If she's in custody and there's some kind of questioning going on under the guise of therapy, frankly, that's something that I think would be really, really difficult, certainly to admit that into evidence. So I think that would open up a Pandora's box of problems.
So, Lauren Vellucci, here's what I'm thinking. Even if it's a problem getting it into evidence, I'm more concerned about finding the girl. So maybe, just maybe, we look the other way and we say, okay, we understand we might be technically violating a constitutional right, but the remedy is we can't use it against her, but we can use it to help find Melodee.
Correct. And time is ticking. It's been a month. So we have to do something. And I think also there was reports that she was trying to rent another rental car. So this is very much like Darren said. It buys them time. It also keeps her from trying to, you know, evade and elude them. And they know where she is. And they are going to be waiting on the evidence that they've collected to hopefully get more pieces of this puzzle solved and put the pressure on mom.
All right, I'm going to try to stump Darren again. Let me see if I can do it. I misfired first time around. All right, Darren, she'll get a court-appointed attorney, right? So if she gets an attorney, do you think that that attorney will be cognizant of, okay, there's a bigger thing going on here, and perhaps try to convince their new client to cooperate and start negotiating on her behalf?
Yeah, you know, it gets really, really fact specific. And by the way, I got to tip my hat to you, Vinny, that whole purposeful questioning outside of Miranda, knowing it's going to be inadmissible. I mean, your prosecutor hat is not too far away from you, my friend. If assuming that she tells the truth to her lawyer, that truth that she reveals could inform those next steps. So if this is a situation where a recovery of a body is inevitable, perhaps cooperation is going to be helpful. Generally, what the criminal defense lawyer is going to say is shut up, especially at this early stage when a lawyer is first assigned. They're not going to rush towards cooperation. You know, it's just so interesting. There are these outlier cases where missing people are discovered after a lengthy period of time. But generally speaking, with this ticking clock and already with the passage of time, unfortunately, the odds get worse with each passing day. It's tragic to say, but that's just the reality in these kinds of cases.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. All right.
But by the way, if I can put on my defense lawyer hat for a moment, you know, if I was going to be arguing about her being innocent of these charges, you would want to point to some third-party bad actor, somebody who is perhaps out to get her. That's why she was wearing the wigs to try and evade this other person who was the real wrongdoer. That's why she was changing the license plate in her car, was to evade somebody else. But, unfortunately, there are some really bad facts.
Does that defense come with a bridge in Brooklyn? All right. Darren Kavinoky staying with us. Great to see you. Lauren Vellucci, great to see you as well. I know you know Darren well as well. All right. Coming up next. What does this new video reveal?
Here you are, responsible for the lifelong torment of an entire family. Is that evil in your mind now? So now you've taken her mother's life, and you heroically step in to console her.
I knew it was wrong, but yeah, I still did it.
Did you murder her mother to try and drive her back into your arms? Oh my God.
Interview with a Killer. New episode Saturday night at 8 Eastern and Pacific, only on Court TV.
What were your first thoughts when you saw this image?
I was totally numb and in shock. This is just so shocking to me, and that my granddaughter is dressed in a disguise.
Unbelievable, right? Melodee's grandma, who was sort of kept away from her granddaughter by her mother, Ashlee. And her grandmother hasn't seen Ashlee in years, a couple of years. It's really a strange scenario, everything that's transpired in this little girl's life. But you saw that little frame that grandma was shown of her granddaughter wearing a wig, a disguise, which is bizarre. And that's part of a new video, and Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas back with us. So give us the story here on this new video.
Well, Vinny, this video is taking place at the car rental agency where they picked up that car before embarking on this multi-state road trip to where Melodee did not return. But it's from October 7th. That's when they picked up the car. It's, again, like you said, from the same image that we've shown before. You take a look at the video now. Now, in this video, you see Ashlee has voluminous hair, to say the least. Investigators believe that both Melodee and Ashlee have on disguises, specifically wigs. Melodee's alleged wig appears to be darker under that hood that she has on. But this is the new video, Vinny. We had still frames. This is, a little movement here. We see them both here in this video. But now I want to talk about details on the car that they were picking up that October 7th day. They picked up a white 2024 Chevy Malibu, again, rented on October 7th. It had a California plate when they picked it up. The California plate read 9MNG101. But investigators say on October 8th, the very next day, they have evidence that shows that the car was seen with a New York plate that read HCG 9677. Now, it's unknown, they say, when this plate was installed or whether additional plates were used throughout this multi-state trip. They also say the New York plate does not belong or have any association to the Chevy Malibu, has no association to Ashlee at all. They believe that that plate was used to avoid some sort of detection. Now, the car gets returned on October 10th with the original California plate back on it. And we also know that that car was the subject of a police search warrant as well. Police search for anything in there just in any relation to this case at all. You saw the mock-up that we did there of the 2024 white Malibu with the California tag and the New York tag, just in case anybody watching this, anybody in the area saw anything or may know anything, Vinnie. But it's an intriguing new development in this story, especially considering that Ashlee Buzzard is now arrested but still not cooperating in the search for her missing 9-year-old daughter, no less. Very intriguing.
Yeah, and heading out with the disguise on in that video, and the body language in that video brings us to the next question. What does this video reveal? What does it tell you about the story? What does it tell you about the mindset? What does it tell you about the relationship here? Here to help with our investigation is Child Protective Services and child abuse expert Dr. Nicole Soler-Peterson and missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher. He's also a search and rescue pilot and ground search technician. Great to have you both here. Dr. Peterson, let me ask you first, in looking at that video, anything you're picking up either on body language or the fact of the disguises, what is it telling you?
It tells me that the child is being compliant, as you would expect a child to be with their parent, that whatever she's been told about this perceived adventure or why they're taking this trip, she's going along with it. She doesn't have a reason to suspect that her mother, the person she trusts the most in the world, most likely, would be potentially isolating her and taking her somewhere that would be unsafe. So what you see is a daughter essentially complying with her mother. And that's the hardest part to watch, is because it's that sacred parent-child relationship, the expectation of safety, trust, love, support, and of course, a child's willingness to go along with their parent, not knowing that they wouldn't be returning with them to safety.
Yeah, well framed. I mean, a case of broken trust is what we're talking about. All right, Steve Fisher, this is your area, looking for people who are missing, investigating these cases. What is this whole scenario with the rental car and the video reveal to you about what happened here?
Well, I mean, the video, shows, it gives us a starting point, at least it shows that, Melodee is safe then and not, injured. But it clearly, shows that there's this intent to, deceive and evade. And that's the part that's troubling, because whatever she's perceiving is after her, or the reason she has to get away or get the child away, as the doctor was just saying, it looks like Melodee that's her world right now, and that she believes that also, and that's that's a scary place to be coming from, because I think virtually all my cases, because I only do missing persons, involve mental health, and the people truly believe what they're perceiving, even though it's an altered reality, and that's kind of what it looks like here. Although she doesn't look particularly manic, she's turning her back to Melodee, and it's not like she's afraid she's going to be snatched away or anything. So it's conflicting, but it is definitely, this is the turning point. This is where it goes. You're confirmed this is not a regular missing persons case. This is an endangered missing person.
Doctor, let me ask you about Melodee's world. Her mother isolated her from everyone. Her father's family, no contact, kept her away from her grandma, kept her away from other children, was pretending to homeschool her and took her out of school for independent study. And that's really how this whole investigation began, when the reporting that's associated with that didn't happen. What are your thoughts about the isolation and how that plays into all of this?
So unfortunately, we see this is really common in a lot of cases, and unfortunately in a lot of cases that end up where children are either tortured or potentially they've been murdered by somebody that they trusted, that they were close to. So that's the difficult part, is that isolation and the independent study or the homeschooling. But even then there are check-ins, there are mandated reporters. And so when that doesn't even happen and they're making that call to child protection, or they're making that call to law enforcement and saying, we haven't seen this kid, can you check on them please for us? But typically, and quite often, unfortunately, in these cases, we do see homeschooling as one of the potential flags, especially when you have family members who are also being isolated. And that's also something that is very common to see as well, that they're no longer allowed to see the child or bring them treats or help with diapers or food. And it just sort of starts there. So it's all part of the isolation and control. And then again, keeping them from any opportunity to speak to somebody who could potentially help them. So a mandated reporter, like a teacher, a doctor, a counselor. And so the isolation portion expectation is there and consistent, unfortunately, in a lot of these cases.
Yeah, I'm afraid too that there wasn't interaction with other children. That's all they want. Like they want to play with other kids. That's their world.
Right.
Steve,
exactly.
One thing that I think has surprised a lot of people and surprised me, but I don't know that much about it, tracking a rental car. You know, I would think that would be so much easier to be able to track a rental car as to exactly where it was, where it stopped, et cetera. But I don't know if that's necessarily been part of this investigation, or maybe it has and they just haven't revealed it.
So California, I live in California. California's got really strict laws on rental car companies in particular, as far as capturing that data. And there's only, they can only capture it for the purpose of roadside assistance and for a stolen vehicle. And of course, you know, she's back before we know anything's wrong. So the car itself, if it was a normal person driving it, there's probably a lot of data you could gather from OnStar and whatnot. However, that's kind of blocks are put in place because it's a rental car. But what I do wonder in this case is, you know, like 65% of people when they rent cars, you know, enable their smartphone with it, and they forget. About 65% forget to delete that profile when they return it in. So that means all your data and all your GPS and everything is sitting in that car still. So they may have been able to extract that, because that's not the rental car company capturing it. That's you giving it to the car when you allow Apple or CarPlay or whatever service you use. You know, so there could be valuable data there.
Fantastic. All right. Steve Fisher's going to stick around. Dr. Nicole Stoller-Peterson, great to have you. We appreciate your insight and hope to have you back a lot to help us through some of these cases. Still to come, is there enough being done to find Melodee? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the disappearance of 9-year-old Melodee Buzzard, a little girl being raised by a single mother, Ashlee Buzzard, who won't tell anyone where her daughter is. Here's the story. From California to the plains of Nebraska, the disappearance of 9-year-old Melodee Buzzard has become a race against time. Her mother, Ashlee Buzzard, was supposed to bring her daughter home safely. But now she's at the center of a baffling mystery. Authorities say Ashlee rented a car, drove east, and returned alone. When investigators pressed her for answers, she grew evasive, declining interviews, dodging questions, and offering no explanation for her daughter's vanishing. The silence has only deepened suspicion. Detectives are following digital trails, vehicle logs, and tips pouring in from across state lines. Meanwhile, communities from California to Nebraska pray for answers and cling to hope. Did something happen on the road? Or is Ashlee hiding the truth about what really happened to Melodee Buzzard? And now, with the arrest of Ashlee Buzzard, everything has changed here. She's in custody. Some of that pressure now hopefully being applied to her may or may not make a difference, may or may not give us an answer. But the answer is to the question that everyone's wondering: where is this young girl? What's going on in the search? Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, what is the latest now on the search for Melodee?
Well, Vinny, we now know that investigators are zeroing in on this new 24-hour window where they say Melodee was last seen. Let's take a listen to the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office spokesperson kind of laying that out.
We know that Melodee was still with Ashlee on that return trip, as close as the Colorado-Utah border on the Colorado side on October 9th. So this does very much shorten our timeline, our search timeline, as well as the area of the search.
So, Vinny, let's take a look at this map right here. This is the map provided by the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office. You can see it stretches. She mentioned that return trip from Green River, Utah, all the way back home to Lompoc, California. Now, Ashlee could have parted ways with Melodee anywhere on this path. But Vinny, we heard her talking about that Colorado-Utah border. So let's take you to that border. According to information released by investigators, they say Melodee was last seen between Green River, Utah and Grand Junction, Colorado. Now, we just heard the spokesperson talk about how she was seen on the Colorado side. Now, Interstate 70, as you see it there laid out on the yellow line in the map, that is the main road between these two cities, the main artery between the two. So we looked a little bit closer at the border. Of course, Grand Junction is the biggest city that's right there near the border, but you have another little small town or other small towns, such as this one, like right here, Mack, Colorado, which only has a little bit over 1,000 residents as I was researching today. It's about 10 miles from the border. Small rural town like where you may stop to grab a bite to eat or fill up your tank while you're on a road trip. Now, of course, these two cities here, Mack and Grand Junction, they're both in Mesa County, Colorado. So I wanted to know if anybody, any police officials in Mesa County were involved in the search, because this is clearly on the path that investigators say that Ashlee and Melodee were taking. So I reached out to the sheriff's office out there in Mesa County. This was their response. They said, "We are familiar with the case as much as the Denver office of the FBI told us they were sharing information publicly, and Mesa County as a whole would be part of their map/release. We shared their social media post to further amplify the information. We are not involved in the case, though." So Mesa County's not involved. All they did was share the social media trying to get the word out there, Vinny. And as I was speaking with the spokesperson with the sheriff's office out there today, she also told me there's not really any buzz in the community, among the people living there surrounding this story as well. But regardless of that, this is still a multi-state search, Vinny. You have Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, California, all these different states where police are searching for this little 9-year-old. And Vinny, we're looking at these border towns, Grand Junction, Mack. That's not because we're certain this is where Melodee is, but that's just what investigators are telling. That's the information that they're giving out as of right now.
Yeah, the last proof of life is just over the border of Colorado and Utah on the Colorado side. That's what they're saying. But they're not telling us the specific location. They're giving us little pieces of video, like we just got the video released. They've had that video of what we're looking for, what they were dressed like, what their appearance was for a missing girl. Brings us to the next question in our investigation. And I'm a little puzzled here. Is there enough being done to find Melodee? Right? I don't know why we're not plastering all the images that we have. I don't know why we're not saying the exact location where she was last seen alive. I need some help. Here to help answer this question, private investigator Lauren Vellucci and missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher. He's also a search and rescue pilot and ground search technician. Steve, am I crazy here? It's a missing 9-year-old. They're not even telling us the name of the town or city where they say she was last seen with her mom.
As a missing persons investigator, this drives me crazy in every case. I do not get this 1950s style, detective, school style. This is not that age. The reason the Amber Alerts are so effective is because they put all the information out there. Who the suspect is, where they were, what the license plates are. They don't slow roll everything like what's happening here. And listen, the fact that the sheriff's department in that county that possibly they were traversing through doesn't even know from the FBI if they're if they're in play or not is really scary. And what's the purpose? I mean, silence does not protect the case. It protects misinformation is all it does. They need to put it out there and worry about the case, or, the prosecution second behind, finding this child. And, they should be giving exact details. This is absolutely crazy that they're not, and sad.
It is. I mean, the power, Lauren Vellucci, we've seen it in other cases. The power of the public they want to help. Everyone wants to help. What's crazy to me, Mesa County, Colorado, sort of kind of putting together the pieces of what they're releasing, seems to be the last place that she's known to be alive. It could be the place where there's a dead body. But Mesa County is not in the mix.
Yeah, no, that's a problem, and that's concerning. I don't understand why these are not murder cases where they have to keep things close to the vest. This child's life is in danger, and it comes down to quickness. We need help with these cases. You see people out on the yard, they are drawn to these cases. Put them to work. We know that in the Gabby Petito case, the reason her body was found was from someone who had dash cam footage of them in that area. The public can help solve cases like this. So I think it's a case of you need to swallow your pride and let people help.
Yeah, that's a great point, Lauren. The Gabby Petito case, it was just someone who happened to be rolling on some video because they were living the van life, and they drove by and they spotted the vehicle they were looking for. They spotted Gabby's vehicle. Steve, not everyone, but a lot of people have dash cams that are rolling all the time. They may have this information that can be very helpful, and they don't even know it. Let me ask you this, though. The fact that they have now narrowed this down to 24 hours and a specific location from just over the border in Colorado to somewhere in California, do you think they have just narrowed it recently in the investigation, or they've just let the public know recently in the investigation?
I think they just let us know.
Really?
I think they just let us know. Yeah, I really do. I mean, and if they didn't, then I'd like to know what's taken so long, because I do believe that, listen, there's license plate readers everywhere, gas stations, truck stops all have tons of surveillance. Even when they're switching the plate, it shouldn't have been, that hard. So I think they've known, and I think they held the information tight. And now here we are, a lot of time has passed, and now they're just getting the public engaged, and they haven't really even done that. And again, that sheriff's department doesn't even know if for sure if anything could have gone on in their county, and there's not even buzz in that county. That's tough to hear, because it does. I mean, it appears that is a hotspot, and the fact that it's not crawling with FBI agents and other law enforcement is also perplexing.
Yeah, Lauren. So this trip, you can't do it on one tank of gas. And I don't think this is going to be another one of those gas can cases. We've had those gas can cases already. We know how all that turned out. I think this is a case where she's got to stop and fill up, stop and fill up, stop and fill. Maybe stop somewhere for the night, whether she's sleeping in the car or in a motel. And all those places, like Steve said, will have some form of surveillance video.
Absolutely. And bathroom breaks. You have to take them. You're obviously drinking. You're obviously eating. So there's multiple locations. They have this narrowed down, and they're just not, I think, exactly as Steve has stated, they haven't felt the need to share it up to this point. So what else do they know now that if they release it, that the public could come forth to see what kind of information they might be able to lead? This location where they last have proof of life is huge. Why is there not search parties out there? It's baffling and it's frustrating. We're running on a clock that has been going too long, and if we have any hope to find her, they need to be more forthcoming.
Yeah. And again, Steve, we're coming back. This is different, right? A lot of times they don't tell us anything, but it seems like they're not even sharing with some of the local law enforcement. They're just, what they're doing is, it seems they're sending them a post that they can repost on their social media. Like, that's not gonna get it done.
No, and I hear that a lot from local law enforcement in cases that have that when the FBI is involved. And listen, the FBI is great at what they do, but they're notorious for not even sharing information with local law enforcement. They'll say they'll take our information, but they don't, share theirs with us, and that doesn't help in this situation. Listen, why didn't they give it? They said that they saw them together. Why didn't they say, was the child still wearing the wig, still wearing the same hoodie? What are we looking for? Why not release a still image of that? I mean, it's just, I don't get it, because listen, I mean, how many hundreds of truckers a day with dash cams rolling for insurance reasons, had that car pass them or pass that car potentially. And by now it's probably been overwritten, because we didn't know we were looking for it.
And those, yeah, absolutely. That's another great point. I mean, all those truckers, and if it's a story that gets out there and everyone's talking about it, they're going to hear about it, and they want to help. Truckers are great. I worked at Sirius, and half my listeners were truckers. Amazing men and women. They want to do good out there. Great job tonight, Steve Fisher. Great to see you. Lauren Vellucci, thank you as well. Coming up next, could Melodee still be alive?
The house was in disarray. There were raw eggs in pans. There was rotten food in the fridge that I think she was trying to give my granddaughter.
Here you are, responsible for the lifelong torment of an entire family. Is that evil in your mind now? So now you've taken her mother's life, and you heroically step in to console her.
I knew it was wrong, but yeah, I still did it.
Did you murder her mother to try and drive her back into your arms? Oh my God.
Interview with a Killer. New episode Saturday night at 8 Eastern and Pacific, only on Court TV.
You need to tell them where the baby is. You need to tell them who's setting all these things up for you. I know you're not doing it.
That's Lori Miranda. That is Ashlee's mother, Melodee's grandma, pleading, please, please, please tell us where Melodee is. All right, let's check back in with Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. So, as we picked up this route that she's taking, they're saying she's last seen at the Utah-Colorado border, but heading towards California, so driving through Utah. Is there any connection here to Utah?
Yeah, Vinny. Well, Ashlee and Melodee's father, who is no longer with us, actually had family in that particular area of Utah heading back towards Colorado and towards California. And in fact, Vinny, Ashlee's mother, Lori Miranda, as you just mentioned, believes her daughter and granddaughter may have crossed paths with people she and Ashlee's father once knew in those states. Take a listen.
You're saying that her father's family, his people,
and my family,
and your family are along those routes.
Utah.
Utah.
Yeah, Utah. When you start getting past Utah, coming back, that's when you're running into his friends.
And Vinny, of course, this is still an ongoing investigation, still no sign of Melodee. And Vinny, just because investigators have narrowed down a window, narrowed down an area of the country they believe, Melodee was last seen and believe that where she is, Melodee could still be anywhere as of right now.
Oh, that's 100% true. Cody Thomas, thanks so much. Great job as always. And that, to me, that gives me a little bit of hope, right? A little bit of hope that there is, or there are some people who Ashlee knows who are connected to Melodee's father, connected to Ashlee's mother. Brings us to the final question in our investigation. Could Melodee still be alive? Here to help, Utah private investigator Jason Jensen, and still with us, trial attorney Darren Kavanoki. All right, let me start with you, Darren, and we'll start with a big if here, right? If she's alive, if she's with some relative, and she's fine and taken care of, is there any criminal liability for this disappearance on the part of the relative or Ashlee Buzzard?
Well, certainly with respect to the mom at this point, there could be, and depending on the state of knowledge of this other third party, there could be. And I love that we're ending the segment on a glimmer of hope, the idea that she still could be alive. you know, when I look at the facts as we know them and the statistics around these kinds of abductions, there is still a significant chance that she is alive. And I say that because we're talking about an abduction, such as it is, involving her mother as opposed to a stranger, a third party. The statistics are much more grim when we're talking about a third party. And the evidence that we have in this case, the facts, the images that you've shown, they show travel, and they show deception, but they don't show violence. And as much as that may speak to the betrayal that we heard about earlier, I think it also does give us a glimmer of hope in this case. And obviously the absence of a body, or the absence of some facts, some actual evidence showing violence, still allows hope to persevere.
Jason Jensen, let me ask you this. Last proof of life just over the border into Colorado from Utah. But let's say they made their way back going towards California. That's going to be what, Interstate 70 going through Utah? What can you tell us about that part of the country? And how difficult would it be to search if, in fact, they're searching for a little girl? What would you be looking for?
That part of the state, and I'm very familiar with, is along the I-70 corridor and then to the I-15 corridor. Is very mountainous and rugged and goes into the desert. There's a lot of different hiding places that if, you know, she was deceased, you wanted to dump a body, you could, because these are notorious places that even Ted Bundy buried a couple of his victims, and they've never been found.
What are the conditions this time of year out there, Jason? And again, we're all trying to hold on to hope that if a 9-year-old is just abandoned and is trying to fend for herself over all this time, what are the weather conditions in that area?
That part of the state, it gets really hot during the summer months, and then it gets low enough, a couple of months of the year, it even has snowfall, but it usually doesn't stick for long because it will get warm enough that it exceeds the freezing temperature where then snow can melt.
And Jason, one final question to you. We only have about 10 seconds left here. Do you think Melodee could still be alive?
Well, like we're ending the show on a glimmer of hope where there's a possibility she passed Melodee off to family members along the Utah-Colorado region where Grandma was describing. But if that's not the case, it's entirely possible that due to a month of time passing by, you know, you can't survive without water and food for that long.
All right. Big thank you to my guests. Jason Jensen, always great to have your insight. Darren Kavinoky, we got to do this more often. Much more often.
Great to see you, old friend.
All right, great to see you. Okay, the arrest of Ashlee Buzzard is an important step in this investigation. What it does is it makes it real. Putting pressure on this mother to talk is long overdue. Every day that passes makes it even more difficult to find Melodee, especially if she's still alive. That's why I care more about the search than about any possible prosecution. And hopefully Ashlee starts answering some questions soon. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.